Hi folks, this is just a quick side-by-side comparison of my old camera, which is the Nikon D40 here, and my new camera, which is the Nikon D5100 here. These two cameras, when they were new, both basically cost the same. So as far as I'm concerned, this is 5 years of evolution within my price point of Nikon cameras. So the first thing to note is there's definitely a size difference between the two. I always liked the smallness of the Nikon D40, and I had hoped it would be exactly the same with the D5100, but it's similar shape, but just everything slightly larger. So you can clearly see here, and in fact if we turn them over, the difference is much more noticeable than it is from the top. So you can see the body is actually very thin on the Nikon D40, but when I turn this guy over, not so thin here. So you can see a very spectacular difference. Another very important difference between the two is that the kit lens has changed. It hasn't changed in regards to its focal length or its brightness even, so they're both 18 to 55mm lenses. They're both AFS lenses with the servo for the autofocus inside the lens, and they're both f3.5 to f5.6. The difference is that the new one is a VR or a vibration reduction lens and the old one isn't, and that VR capability makes the lens bigger than the old one. So in terms of the actual buttons, there's been a lot of rearranging, but there's very little that's actually changed. And most of the rearranging is actually on the back. So if we look here at the top, it's all very similar. We have the on-off button in exact the same place. We have the exposure compensation button in exact the same place. We have the mode selector dial in exact the same place. And we have an info button at the top, though not in exact the same place. There's one here on the old camera, and it's moved down to here on the new camera. What has changed is there's two extra buttons now. So this one here, next to the fire button, is the video record button. And one of the nice things about the D5100 is that you don't have to change mode to go from shooting video to shooting still. So as long as live view is on, you can hit this button to fire a photo and this button to record a video. And so you can just interchange between the two as you need. You can turn live view off and still take stills, but you can't take video, or at least I don't think you can. I certainly couldn't record any video with live view off. The other subtle difference is that there's a small set of holes here which you can barely see, which is the speaker, which is we can play back video, and there is no equivalent on the D40 because it had no video support. Similarly, there's another small set of holes around the front. If we put the cameras up, so there's a small set of holes here, which is the mic, or the built-in mic. But apart from that, it's actually very similar at the front. So if we move up, you see a little spot here and a little spot here. Those are the sensors for the Nikon infrared remote. And although they're very in slightly different positions, they're basically in the same place. There's an autofocus assist light in the gap here, and the same on the old D40. There is a button to release the lens here, and it's in exact the same place on the new one here. There's also, if we turn them around, there's also two buttons here, the function button and the flash button, and there's two buttons here, the function button and the flash button. So far, all pretty much similar, apart from the fact that the D5100 has a few extra buttons. Now, if you look at the back, is where things change the most, although there's still a lot of similarities. So the first thing to say is that you have the little wheel in the same place in both, sort of the command dial, I believe Nikon called that, and also easily within thumb's reach in basically the same place. So here on the new camera and here on the old camera is the autofocus auto exposure AF/AL lock. Obviously the eyepiece in the same place on both. And then in approximately the same place you also have the command, the little button here for the sort of your up, down, left, right and OK buttons, and they haven't moved since the D40 where they were here. I'm actually going to stand these up. There's much similarity again, although the layout has changed a lot. So in the old one, the D40 here, we have the four buttons arranged along the side, apart from the delete button down here. Whereas in the new one, this side is taken up by the hinge of the movable screen, so the buttons have had to move over here. There is a one-to-one mapping, but they've all changed a bit. So this menu button here on the D40 has moved up here on the D5100. The play button, which is here, it's been worn off, it used to be green. That is now up here. And these are the plus minus zoom in zoom out buttons, and they're now over here. And then the delete button here is basically in the same place. The big difference then is obviously the screen. So on the D40 you had a reasonable, decent screen, but it didn't move, so it was just in place. Whereas on the new camera, the screen is articulated. So you pull it up, and you can do the sort of the camcorder-like trick of having it, like that. Or, sorry, wrong way. You can rotate it the whole way around and pull it back on itself, like so, and then you have a more traditional screen. So there we are, just as you're used to seeing it. But the fact that it's articulated means you can more easily shoot at awkward angles and stuff, which is definitely nice. And then the other small, but in my opinion very handy change, is that there's now room here on the bigger body for another sensor, an IR sensor for the remote. So on the D40 there is no sensor on the back. The only sensor for the remote is the one I showed you earlier here on the hand grip. So if you have your camera sitting on a tripod and you're shooting something in front of you, like stars or something, you don't want to shake the camera, you have to reach around and fire at that sensor on the front. Whereas with the new camera, having the sensor right here at the back means you can more easily use your remote on a tripod. Other than that, really, there aren't that many differences physically between the cameras. I should say that the older D40 is actually somewhat heavier than the newer D5100, which is either a reflection of better modern technology being lighter, or of the build quality having gone down. I hope it's the latter. But I have to say, I did always like how solid the D40 felt, and I don't quite get that same sense from the new D5100, but that may just be because I'm used to that heavier camera, so time will tell. They both have built-in flashes, so if I pop them up, they're both in the same place. And they both have the hot shoe at the top for accessories or flashes. So that is the old and the new. And I'm going to call it quits for here. Apologies for the wobbly cam because I'm just recording this on my iPhone, and apologies for the poor focus at times. My iPhone seems to have decided it doesn't like to autofocus. So again, apologies. I hope the point comes across even if the video quality isn't as it should be.